While we have seen a general appetite for stocks in the last couple of weeks, we're coming off a period of fear-based investing, especially given the constant barrage of headlines out of D.C. Now, that may have spelled some opportunity in the case of some stocks. Dan Rohinton is our guest at this hour, portfolio manager at IA Global Asset Management. Dan, we've talked a lot about the trade uncertainty, but one of the other stories to emerge out of D.C. was the Doge uncertainty, the focus on cutting back on government spending, and it impacted a lot of thought on companies that have had reasonably strong relationships with the federal government in the U.S., and that's influenced some of the stock opportunities that you've seen in the market.
Yeah, and I think there's a few, it really comes down to how much and how deep do they cut and in what projects. So it comes down to how mission critical you really were in your relationship with the government. And for some companies, not so much. And for others, it's a mere blip, if not an opportunity to actually grow their wallet share within the biggest contractor payer in the world.
So as an example, Accenture, this is a well-known consulting giant, and there was definitely a concern around Doge that might impact their business. Do the headline fears net out? Is the market correct in having sold off this stock in a big way?
I think what's interesting about this conversation is that there's many different parts to the Accenture business, right? And what I would tell you is that the Doge fears are being priced into the stock even on a day like today. Well, actually, today is more about LATAM and some of the weakness there, but you are seeing the valuation compress on the fears around that. We haven't fully seen that yet, but what I would say is let's take a step back. And when we look at the IT and the technology world as a whole, most big ideas are implemented through Accenture. So if we're talking about cloud computing, Accenture has a big role to play there as a big systems integrator. If we're talking about the other side, like AI, where Microsoft put up some very strong results, Accenture is a key enabler for those things as well. So it's not as much about the role Doge and the government have to play or not, because I do think that there are some risks there. But I think if you take a step back, this is a diversified, dividend-paying, well-managed company that participates in AI penetration across the Fortune 5000. And you have to take the risk that there's a little bit of government cuts to come, but I think the full spectrum might be a good buying opportunity today.
All right, let's compare Accenture to another publicly traded consulting firm known for the assistance it gives various businesses and governments in IT, Capgemini, which Capgemini arguably has sort of a deeper footprint, let's say, in Europe. Is that correct?
That's absolutely right. So think of this as an Accenture, but a tier 2 version of Accenture with a more European footprint. And the reason that this might be something to think about as part of a diversified portfolio is that it's half the valuation. So the risk for that is the reason why that's historically been the case is that Accenture grew faster, had better margins, and had better capital allocation. Capgemini was in a slower market because Europe didn't grow as fast. Their capital allocation, there were question marks from time to time there. And they were just a little bit further behind on the outsourcing trend of professional services, the way Accenture had done it years earlier. So you really get Accenture with a more European tilt at half the valuation. So I do think there's a role for that to play as part of a diversified portfolio, but it really comes down to just where you think the opportunity is. Is it more in Europe or if it's more in the US? But both companies are largely in the same sector.
I want to talk about the opportunity in some of the other sell-off examples that we've seen in the last couple of months. One of the biggest stock stories over the last, call it year and a half, had been some of the chip companies that were benefiting from the AI transition, right? We couldn't stop talking about NVIDIA. And then after what felt like to some lofty valuations coming into the year, maybe the sector felt vulnerable. You know, if AI technology was allowing you to do more with less chips. Then that was kind of the first worry this year. And then amid the trade war uncertainty and some of the tensions with China, all of a sudden investors really hit the sell button. But Taiwan Semi is a good example of another company that you're watching. And what's amazing to me is, I mean, the stock got hit pretty hard, but in a snap of your fingers, it's very quickly coming back to where it was, call it in February. What's your general sense on the mood of the markets in an example like Taiwan Semi?
So I think Taiwan Semi tends to basically lag the moves that NVIDIA, the Avago technologies of the world do have, because they're really the unsung hero in this whole conversation. So Avago uses Taiwan Semi as a manufacturing partner. So does NVIDIA. So all roads for Apple, NVIDIA, Avago go through Taiwan Semi. So they're doing the hardest work to actually build these chips at scale. So the way I think about it is simple. If what we're seeing in the news that's coming out of the Trump Middle East trip around chip orders and the loosening up of basically the diffusion rule that limited the ability for foreign buyers of chips from the leading American companies, as that loosens up, all of this demand ultimately concentrates into Taiwan Semi. So you don't need to take a bet on design type, you don't need to take a bet on where the geography is, because the 100% market share operator for leading edge is effectively Taiwan Semiconductor. And what's interesting about this conversation is that you're getting it at a discount. And I think the reason for that is there is a push to get more of Taiwan semiconductor production insourced basically into the United States, and that does come at a lower margin. So that is the one risk you have to think about. But the rest, every other positive you read about AI anywhere in the world, know that Taiwan Semi is the critical pinch point in the value chain to actually make it happen.
Dan, a good lesson on the technology supply chain. Dan Rohinton joining us with some investment ideas. He's with IA Global Asset Management. Time